It's that time of week. Pour another dram. Reach for the sky. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Dram Talk. I'm Brad.
And I'm Daniel. And today we are looking at two different expressions from Talisker. Sitting in front of us, we have Talisker Storm and the Talisker 18-year-old.
Right, yeah, so it's been quite some time since we've had a look at Talisker. Last time we did was when we did our first whiskey bouts with the Talisker 15 and the Lagavulin 12, both part of the Rare by Nature collection by Diageo.
Yeah, and classic Brad, before going to, the core range, the kind of classic Talisker 10, he's gone through the cask strength 15-year-old. Now he's visiting Talisker Storm and Talisker 18. So he still hasn't tried the 10.
Hey, what can I say? It's just how we do.
So today we are going to run through a brief crash course in the region where we would classify Talisker being the Scottish Islands. So
yeah, this is our crash course for the islands. We did Isla, now we're jumping into the islands. And by no means, this isn't just us going through our preference of how we enjoy these. Don't worry, we're coming to the other regions. But hey, we've just landed in the islands today.
yeah, so Scotland has, nearly 800 islands off its coast. And I think that region has less than 10 distilleries. And I think the drams from these islands are pretty unique and they warrant their own kind of classification. Like they fit into their own category. I know they're not recognised by the Scotch Whisky Association as being a separate and distinct region. However, I think it could also come down to accessibility to them because there's only a handful of them that actually operate distilleries, but there's not
literally a handful, right?
Yeah.
Under 10.
Yeah. So there's not a lot of easy transport between them. So you can't exactly do a malt whiskey trail of the islands. You might have to be jumping back and forth from the mainland if you wanted to visit. I mean, Skye is accessible via a bridge that you can drive over, but a lot of them you'd have to kind of take ferries across to access. And I think the most popular ones would be, aside from Talisker being on the Isle of Skye, would be Highland Park, located on Orkney. We've looked previously at Tobermory from the Isle of Mull, which also produces Lechaig. Then you've got Jura and Arran. So both of them have distilleries after the island's namesake. Orkney is the most northerly located one, whereas Jura, Arran and Mull, they're all really close to Islay. And then Skye is northwest, kind of that midway point between Islay and Orkney if you're kind of heading around the coast of Scotland.
Like as Daniel mentioned, I mean, whiskies from the islands really have distinct notes that you can actually associate to it. When we're looking at them, I think, as Daniel mentioned, it's really appropriate that they have their own category, right?
Yep.
So if we're looking at those typical flavors that you can pick up, you're definitely going to get smoke. You're definitely going to get brine, right? That maritime kind of notes, and that's just associated with the vicinity of which all these distilleries are to the ocean, right?
Yeah, and then pepper, which is just like quintessentially an element of Talisker, as well as that kind of like underlying hint or maybe even like very obvious presence of smoke and peat.
Yeah, then you've got oil, honey, and citrus. So they're those most common notes that you'd find. If we're looking at our local stores here in Australia, like Highland Park is definitely pretty accessible, as is Tobermory and Lechaig. Jura pops up every now and again, and Talisker is definitely always there. And the thing with Talisker is, I'd definitely say if you're looking at the islands and you want to experience, I guess, what that region has to offer in terms of flavor and, I guess, complexity, Talisker they're the largest island distillery.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, if you want to, I guess, get an idea of what the islands are throwing out there, go to Talisker, right?
I'd agree. And as we said, like they're probably they're the largest one on the islands. They're the most well-known ones. They're the most accessible ones. But Highland Park are picking up.
Yeah, definitely.
I think I'm noticing them a lot more over the past few years.
Yeah, and I mean, I know we're pushing Talisker a bit. Like I mentioned, like Talisker is one to go to if you're trying to get the notes and the flavor profile of the islands, but we know Talisker could probably be a bit rough as well for some people. So if you want an alternative, I can highly recommend Tobermory as well.
Yeah, and we intentionally left out Islay. Even though they are a Scottish island that produces whiskey, they are so distinct from anything else you'd experience that they deserve their kind of own categorization. And I know whiskey is different for everyone. Everyone's on their own whiskey journey. But for me, Isla and the islands, they are like the epitome of what I think about when I think of Scotch. Like, you're either thinking of those super smoky drams, or for me, I'm also thinking about kind of like the rough and salty maritimey drams. So like, they're just what stick in my mind when I think of Scotch, and they're the ones I usually turn to like when I'm looking to enjoy a dram. And I think that's pretty much representative of our episodes so far, where we've primarily been looking at Isla, and then our next divergence into a specific region has been the islands, aside from a touch on the Spey side, primarily due to its popularity.
Yeah, and I mean, just I guess while we wrap up, I guess that super crash course of the islands. There's not, and the thing is, I guess there's not too much to say about the islands because, like we mentioned, you wouldn't, I guess, typically associate them as their own region themselves, but we believe that they should be their own kind of region because the flavors are distinct and you can tell that that's an island dram when you have one. Yeah, and I mean, if you've been a regular listener to the pod, you know Daniel and I love that peatiness, that smokiness. So there's no, I guess, question that we'd love the island whiskies.
Yeah, absolutely. So just give you an idea of, I guess, like the area we're looking at. And I mean, like, if you're especially new to whiskies and scotches in general, kind of just like picturing where a lot of these distilleries and brands you may have seen, where they fit in with the overall world of Scotch and world of whiskey.
Yeah. And before we get into the drams here, let's just get into some information about Talisker themselves, right?
So the story of Talisker begins in 1825 when the McCaskill brothers, they took out a lease on the Talisker house estate. And it was in 1830 that a distillery was actually built, and it only cost them £3,000 to build the distillery.
Oh, bargain.
Now, it's funny, like when the distillery first started getting up and running, they didn't have a pier on the distillery. So to load the casks onto the ship to send them to the mainland, this was obviously before they built the bridge to access them. The casks were actually set afloat and towed 300 or 400 yards out into the lock to be loaded onto the ship. So this whole made by the sea, they're essentially born in it.
Right, yeah.
From the cask before they reached the bottle, they were dragged through the ocean to get onto a ship to make it to the mainland. Now, as for like Talisker's rise to prominence, one of the prominent writers around those late 1800s was Robbie Louis Stevenson, who wrote Treasure Island. But his quote was, "The king o' drinks, as I conceive it, Talisker, Isla, or Glenlivet." So I mean, like, this guy had superb taste in whiskeys.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now, like, Talisker had it was a little bit rough going because before they had a land bridge, they had a bit of issues getting their product to the mainland. Now, unlike Isla, where they had a whole bunch of other distilleries who could share the cost in setting up a ferry route,
Yeah.
they kind of encountered a little bit of difficulty. And then especially through like the era of like Prohibition, where they had like a bunch of excess, they were kind of in danger of going out of business, like most Scotch whiskey distilleries throughout that time. Now, they did have luck in that Talisker became a key filler in Johnny Walker, and it carried the Johnny Walker Striding Man logo on its bottles up until 1980s. So it wasn't until recently that they've adopted, I guess, like the shape of the Isle of Skye on their bottles, as well as the lion mermaid that you also usually find appearing on their bottles and boxes. Now, like, its kind of rise to prominence really came about when it was included in the original 6 classic malts in 1988. Now, interestingly enough, Talisker, when it was originally distilled, was actually triple distilled, like an Irish whiskey. And that created a very unique flavor profile, as I don't think we've come around to reviewing it yet, but as we've experienced with Mortlach, for example, who do triple distilling, they're quite unique in their flavor and mouthfeel. And so Talisker has 3 wash stills supplying a pair of spirit stills and a really strange set of line arms, which are copper pipes that connect the neck of the still to the condensers, or the old-fashioned worm tubs, which Talisker uses. So that's where the vapors are condensed into a spirit. Now, so like most distilleries have these being really straight, but Talisker's is kind of in like a U shape. Now, this is like distinct to Talisker, and I think it's, or at least like it's speculated that's their attempt to try and, I guess, somehow replicate that triple distillation process, because the more times the spirit vapors come in contact with the copper, the more impurities are removed and the better quality and consistency liquid they actually end up producing. So most of what Talisker releases, all but one, are bottled at 45.8 ABV.
Yeah, and I think it's the 57 degrees north, which is at 57%.
Yeah, so 57 degrees north would be the exception to that. Okay, well, that's enough talking.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
very thirsty now.
We filled up the talk section of Dram Talk today, so let's get into the Dram.
drams.
Yeah, let's get into the Dram. So we're going to start off with the Talisker Storm. So if I'm looking at the nose, definitely briny.
Yeah, initially opening the bottle and pouring it in the glass, it was very reminiscent of Ardbeg. Like, you're getting that brininess, but you're also getting the underlining smoke and...
Yeah, it's like that barbecue nature.
It's I wouldn't necessarily call it that same kind of savory meats that you'd get, but that definitely, like, there's a barbecueness to it. And there's definitely pepper there, like classic Talisker, carrying notes of pepper.
I'd say there's definitely some chili notes there in the back.
Yeah, you're getting a lot of those kind of bitey spices, pepper, chili, ginger.
But yeah, let's just get into the palate, I think.
Yeah. It's got that undeniable Talisker bite, really strong pepper note, nicely salted. And that just like, I found that pepper spice bite just kept going down my throat and just like warming my chest as it went.
Yeah, it's definitely got like that peppery bite to it. But I'm also getting a bit of chili as well.
Yeah.
Like you get a bit of chili on the, like at the lip as it comes towards your mouth. And I'd say it's an oaky dryness as well. This isn't an oily dram at all.
Yeah, no, but like taking it in on the initial mouthfeel, it's very dense, it's very rich, it's very spiced.
I'd say the palate isn't as smoky as the nose was.
Yeah, on the nose, you're getting reminiscent hints of Ardbeg. It's not like a very peated Ardbeg. Like, it doesn't carry across to the palate. What presents itself in the palate is Talisker. And it's like, it's like a very strong Talisker. It's like, it's got the bite in combination with the saltiness followed by the peat that I guess is just, I'm finding is present across all expressions of Talisker, but it is just like much more intense.
Yeah, I'd say, yeah, it does hit a bit hard, but I'd say like the smokiness isn't one that you'd associate to an Isle of whiskey.
No, yeah,
it's like a different kind of smokiness. It's almost like dried oak.
Yep.
That's just like burnt wood, kind of like an oakiness, right? It's not that meaty kind of smoke.
Yeah, and I mean, like, if I could be premature here in giving a dram in words for this one, what's getting me is you're on like a pirate ship, like a wooden ship. You've just been tossed around in the storm. Maybe one of the barrels of gunpowder has exploded, so the ship's gone up in flames, and you're just like out on the sea with kind of like the burnt wood floating around you, and you got this salty sea air just smashing you on all sides, but in a very good way.
Yeah, I don't know, like for me as well, like I haven't, like as Daniel mentioned at the start, like I haven't tried the Talisker 10, but you know, man, I could say this could be a pretty good entry for those that want to explore what the island scotches have to offer.
I would almost be hesitant to say that. I think
really, okay.
I think that like for the fact that it isn't an age statement, it can maybe be a little bit young.
Okay, yeah, because that's interesting. Because like even though I was getting like that pepper note, there's some smokiness there. There's notes of chili there as well. But what I'm finding as well, there's an underlying smoothness that, like, I don't know, like I'm just finding it really palatable and really enjoyable. So like I'd say, I guess if you're accustomed to drinking scotch and maybe you haven't ventured off into the islands yet, man, I mean, this is probably a good start.
Yeah, no, okay. It's like in that vein, I would agree with you.
So I think immediately with the addition of water, the chili note comes straight to the forefront. I'd almost say there's like an underlying citrusy note as well.
Yeah, the very prominent barbecuey Ardbegian notes that I was picking up earlier have fallen to the back, and the saltiness comes across a little bit more, and so does the peat.
I think maybe that's what it is. Like the salinity of it has just come out to the forefront. But yeah, the Talisker storm has been calmed
Mm.
with the addition of water. It's been calmed, right? It's pretty much that rough ride has just smoothed out. You're out of the eye of you're in the eye of the storm.
I would, yeah, like for me, it's like this. Yeah, the storm has passed. You're not getting battered about anymore. But what you're left with is like you're walking through the remnants of the storm, and you've almost got like the dying embers of some of the fires that a storm caused. The fire's been put out by the rain, but the embers are still smoldering away, and you still got like that like fresh sea air hanging about.
It's funny, like, as I finished my dram there, the bite is almost reminiscent, I guess, to the way it's like playing across my tongue. It's almost like when you have like that popping candy,
Yep.
and it's kind of just like making its way across your tongue, and it's just like fizzling around. That's kind of what the pepper's kind of doing.
Yep.
Like that's with the addition of water, it's kind of just bouncing around, and it's not making any distinctive note or carrying any punch to it compared to without the water. The pepper was definitely prominent. The chili was definitely prominent.
Mm-hmm.
But I think as well, like on the finish, like as you're going through and as like you exhale, you can feel that smokiness, like that woody smokiness. So yeah, the smokiness is still there. But I mean, all in all, so far, pretty interesting. So I think, yeah, let's move on to the 18. You know, as always, ratings at the end of the pod. So let's
Do
get
you
to
have
the
a
18.
dram in words for the storm? I
yes, dram in
I
words.
gave just a recap. My ones, I was getting tossed around in the ocean. The ship that I was on is aflame. I'm getting burning bits of wood remnants of the ship floating past me. I've got sea breeze smacking me in the face, and I don't know, maybe the ship was just carrying a whole bunch of chili and pepper as its cargo, and so I'm just getting that in the air as they're cooking through the burning ship.
Okay, so for me, a dram in words, a Talisker storm. I'm in a seaside town, and the town has pretty much just been ransacked by pirates, and you got burning buildings. And as you're walking through, you're getting all of that, like the smoky, burnt embers that are
Yep.
mixing and intertwining with the sea air as you're walking through the town. And that's pretty much what I'm getting.
Okay, let's go on to the Talisker 18. So I think this one's quite widely acclaimed.
Right, yeah. So
Not to build it up too much.
yeah, so he picked up the title of Best Whiskey in the World at the 2007 World Whiskey Awards. And if you're looking at this one, it's spent 18 years in casks which previously held bourbon and sherry. And immediately on the nose, you can tell this has been in a sherry cask.
Yeah. I get what you mean about it being in the sherry cask, but immediately on the nose for me, though, I just got like smacked in the face with a bit of seaweed. And then I took a deeper breath, and it's just like spiced sherry.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm getting that. I mean, for me, this is like fresh. Like there's almost some fruitiness in there that I'm picking up, and it's spicy as well. And I think that sweetness and that fruitiness that I'm picking up and the spices are almost leading you down that path where the Glenallachie was taking us.
Okay. Interesting.
And again, that's something that's been in a sherry cask, so I'm just saying,
You're right in that it's a lot more fresh. It's very distinct from the storm. Like, even just picking up the empty glass of the storm, I'm like, still that barbecuey, Ardbegian notes are just very present in the glass. When I turn back to the 18, a lot fresher, but also a lot crisper. And that's that crispness that I'd put towards maritime air. Like, it's still undoubtedly a maritime dram, and it's also a lot fresher, like citrus as well.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with you that the freshness is akin to a sea air or a sea breeze, but the peat and the smoke are still present, but there's still like a woodiness to it.
Okay, let's go into the palate.
If I'm immediately looking at this, I guess to my experience with the storm, definitely more full-bodied, definitely richer.
Yep, absolutely.
The notes of spice are there, but I'm almost tempted to say it's more of a baking spice. I don't get that same, I guess, sensation on the lip where it's almost akin to eating a green or a red chili, which I was experiencing with the storm. So immediately this is more pleasant on the palate. I'm getting pepper still, but then it's immediately followed by a woody smokiness.
Yeah, so the pepper kind of like sits along the top of the tongue, but just on the surface. Like it is not the main thing. It's not the star of the show. It's not the main thing that overwhelms your experience. I'm getting like classic seaside maritime dram, followed by some wood smoke. It becomes even more present. Like as I'm talking now after having a sip of it, the smoke is coming through my mouth a lot more. Like, but then yeah, it's also got a very spiced finish. Like it's very clear that this one has been influenced by sherry casks. It's got a lot more of those spices as well as the dried fruits that come across with that citrus, which I'd almost attribute to like an orange zest in like a sticky fruit cake.
I think what's really, I guess if I'm like comparing this to what I recall of the 15,
Yep.
where there was peat, saltiness, chili, all of that was present in the 15 and it was also prominent. This one, comparing to that, is delicate.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very finely tuned scotch compared to the 15. That typical harshness that you associate with Talisker, it's almost not present in the 18. But what's really different for the 18 for me is it's not getting all up in your face.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of, well, it's just more mature, right?
It's entering adulthood. It's a little bit
Yeah.
more refined, a little bit more collected,
Yeah.
and it's able to articulate and express itself in a variety of different terms.
And the thing is, like, Daniel and I are peat heads, but if I'm just speaking for myself, this is pretty damn good. And like that's just me putting peat head to the side.
Yeah, like
Because I can definitely appreciate a good scotch, and this is a good scotch. So I've just gone and added a teaspoon of water to mine, and the freshness and crispness is still there.
Yep, I would agree. And I know you weren't picking it up before, but the saltiness and the seaweed is a little bit more prominent as I'm delving into it now.
Yeah, with that on the nose, I know I wasn't picking it up before, but that sea air, it's almost just jumping out of the glass now. But it still carries a bit of spiciness to it as well.
Oh yeah, it definitely has the spice, and that's something that I don't think you can escape. But it's still definitely a maritime dram. Now onto the palate.
So all of those same notes I was picking up before: spice, pepper, oaky, woody smoke, and I'm almost going to say I'm picking up toffee as well.
Okay.
And I'm really enjoying how complex this is, right? You're necessarily going to, when you look at Talisker, you're looking at rugged around the edges, rough,
Yep.
smash you up against the rocks, wave after wave. But what I think the 18 does is it's wave after wave of flavor
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and complexity. This is a refined scotch.
Yeah, and then I think, as we found with Talisker, when we added water previously, that's where they really show you how at home they are with the water, because adding water to this adds layers of complexity to it. And I think for me, it's brung out. For me, it's brought out a lot more of a peatier characteristic, a vegetal. No, that's what I'm picking up. Even on the finish, it's very spiced, but also very peppery. Like I'm getting it just like coating my entire, like not the dram itself, but like the sensation of kind of like that pepper, chili, maybe even like a little bit of salt added into it. And it's like, as I'm speaking, like the flavors are still like kind of appearing in my mouth as the air's passing over it.
Yeah, really interesting. I mean, I'm still not picking up strong peat or vegetal notes. The
Okay.
smokiness is there because it's like that woody smokiness that we've, I guess, associated to Talisker now. But man, what I really enjoy about this is the fact that it's smoky, sweet, and spicy all at the same time.
Yeah, it's definitely got a really good interplay between those elements that I think we haven't really encountered in a lot of other drams.
I guess on the second revisit with that addition of water, I'm almost picking up notes of peat. But for me, the peat's in the background. It's almost the backdrop, and it's letting everything else play out in front of it.
Yeah, and just to, I guess, like, clarify, like, put a little bit of context onto this here, is this 18 is a very new bottle to us as the bottle's only a couple of days like from being opened, this is the third dram of this I've had. First one, it was just like the primarily just getting those pleasant range of spices that you'd commonly find from whiskeys aged in sherry casks. Second time I tried it, I added water both times. The second time I tried it was where the peat really expressed itself after adding the water. And I think it is following the addition of water that you're actually able to discern the peat. And even now, the peat still come up, and it's especially in those, like it's not in the same sense that you'd find a peated whiskey if you're looking at an Islay one, but it is still like you can tell it is an element of this one. And I think that really like shines after the addition of water.
So finishing my dram, again, I really enjoyed the 18. It's displayed almost everything that was present in the Storm, but it's more refined, more sophisticated.
Yep.
And that's what you'd expect from a 18, something that's, been around the block, it knows what to do.
Yeah, and for my dram in words for the 18, like I think I've mentioned it on a previous episode, and I know we haven't tried the 10, so this may not be something Brad would be able to equate to, but I guess like from the essence of Talisker, just rubbing salt in the wound there, like still haven't tried the 10. I would put a dram in words for the 10 as there's like a storm raging on the coast. You're locked in a lighthouse that is there's a little bit of draft running through, and you're just holding that bottle for dear life, and that's what's getting you through the night as you've got the waves crashing against the shore, maybe lightning striking down elsewhere. Talisker 18, you're experiencing that same storm. However, instead of being trapped in a lighthouse, you're maybe trapped in a manor. So like you've got the storm raging right on the coast, right next to you, but you're sitting in comfort. You've got dinner cooking. You may be like moving from dinner into dessert, and you just like, you can tell because you don't have to worry about that storm. It's still there, but you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, so I'd say for me, for my German words, you're dressed in the finest robements, right? You've got your robe, and then you're out on the coast. You're standing on the shoreline with the rocks. The water is beating up against the rocks. The waves are crashing against it. And as the waves come across the rocks, it's revealing different crevices, and in those crevices are certain, I guess, formations of peat that are within the undergrowth or the land, right? As you're standing on the seaside, and with each hit of wave of water, it's revealing more peat.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you're standing there taking that in, you're getting that smell of vegetation, but it's mixing with the salinity of the ocean and the water. So for me, that's what it is.
Okay, yeah, that's a good one. Okay, so I guess that leads us on to the ratings.
Well, just wait a bit there. We've been talking about Talisker, and look, I've got 2 glasses poured here. Let's just
the Talisker 15 is back.
The Talisker 15 is back. Let's get into it. What's can't remember, what's the ABV on the 15? Was it
57.8, I think.
57.8. So what, a whole 12%?
57.3.
57.3. Okay, well, pretty much
11.5%.
All right, well, pretty much a whole 12% above the 18 and the Storm here. So, I mean, I think what's really apt on the nose, this is incredibly more, I don't want to say complex, but I'd say more diverse. There's more present, but whatever's present is incredibly richer than what was evident in the Storm. But I think what really differentiates this from the 18, right, is that the iodine and the saltiness and the maritime notes are just on another level.
Yeah, so like the way I would equate this to the 18 is the 18, it's lighter. Like there's a lot of really fine, intricate layers lying there. But then this one, it's like very strong, thick layers, and you knew it was layered. So you kind of like moved from layer to layer.
And I think the immediate point of difference if we're just looking at this, I guess, objectively, to the 18 and the Storm, is that the bite on the nose is on another level, and you definitely attribute that to the ABV, right?
I mean, like, going up against it, you could definitely tell it's a higher ABV. Like, there's no escaping that.
What I'm gonna say is this is almost the Storm amplified, but at the same time it's the 18 amplified, because what you don't expect is there is unexpected sweetness in the 15.
Yep. So when we first reviewed this, I said when you're approaching it on the nose, you'd be forgiven for thinking you're approaching a Speyside whiskey. I think even like in the couple of weeks that's passed, it's developed a little bit more. And nosing this, I'm not getting a Speyside whiskey.
No, not at all.
I'm getting a maritime one. I'm getting like hints of the islands, hints of roughness around the edges. Like you can tell as you're going in for it, there is going to be a bite, there is going to be a kick, and you're just like, because you know that, you're going to prepare for it, and it almost makes it pleasurable when it hits. You're like, yep, this is what was coming. Like where the Storm's bite, that peppery kick that it had was kind of untamed and like unleashed, and that it wasn't held back. This one's a little bit more orchestrated. It's taken time and thought into what it is actually going to be delivering. And when it hits, you're just like, yeah, that was done well.
Yeah, this one is it's decided where it's going to hit you on the palate. Mm-hmm. It's decided where it's going to accentuate certain notes, right? And, oh man, the chili note in this one, where if I'm looking at the Storm, the chili note on the lip was almost there's a lot more heat present.
Yep.
This one, where chili note is still there, but this one is more of a pleasant chili note. And what I'm looking at the finish is it's incredibly long, and it's a very rich, full-bodied finish. This Talisker 15, it's just a treat.
Brad's gushing.
No, but like honestly, it's just a treat.
It really is. I think all of these Taliskers are a treat in their own way. I think you really can't beat cask strength. Like that just adds it pushes whatever you're experiencing to the next level.
So we just added some water here, and I think immediately with the water, there is like a stone fruit, say like a peach.
Yep.
Really interesting, something that you just don't typically find in Talisker. But to be fair, I did mention that I did find some sweeter notes in the 18, but to find that they're still present in the 15 as well, damn, that's pretty. I guess that's pretty much a real notch in the 18's belt. That even at a lower ABV, it's still presenting that.
Yeah, I think like the sweetness is very different. Like the sweetness of the Talisker 15 is more of like a sweetness that's applied to a nuttiness. So in the sense of like you've got like a honey cashew, whereas Talisker had the Talisker 18 had like a sticky sweetness that you'd put together with spices and with citrus and with fruits.
This is just every, I guess, sip is it just fills your mouth, fills your palate. And I think we said it in the Lager 12 versus Talisker 15. I can't imagine somebody being disappointed in the Talisker 15.
No, absolutely not. Although we're not here to review the 15. Let's get back to our ratings of Storm and 18. So, I would give Talisker Storm a 7.8. It's just like a great expression of Talisker. It's kind of got that bite, got that kick. It's throwing you around like you'd expect with the name they've given to the bottle. And it's just great.
Okay, yeah. I mean, that's pretty fair. And I think if I'm looking at the Talisker Storm, I'm going to give that a 7.5. I could have almost given it a 7.8, same as you.
Yep.
But just when you added the water, it muted some flavors and just diluted them a little bit. Too much for my liking.
Yep.
And it's just, well, if you're made by the sea, why is the water hurting you?
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, so if I'm looking at the Talisker 18, Now, I'll go first for this one. So, Talisker 18, that is an 8 for me. What about you? Yeah, so if I'm looking at the Talisker 18 now, I'll go first for this one. So, Talisker 18, that is an 8 for me. What about you?
Just considering my ratings. You know what? Like, I'm going to give it... Okay, so, like, all of my 9s, I haven't given them a point aside from the Talisker 15, which I gave a 9.5. So, I'm going to give the Talisker 18 a 9.1. I've been thoroughly impressed by this. It was kind of... It carried elements of Talisker as well as, like, a complexity that you don't really find in some of the younger drams. It just worked well. It's a daily drinker. It's one that I wouldn't be scared of giving someone and worrying about them having that kind of like intense hit that might turn them away. And it's just one that, like, since experiencing it, I don't know, it's just entered that all-time favorites for me.
Okay, you know what? I'm changing my Talisker 18 to 8.5. And that's just because I was going back and having a look at what I gave almost some classic bottles, right?
Yeah.
Ugdal 16, Lagavulin 16, sorry, that is. And yeah, it's on the same level as that. It's not below that. It's on the same level as that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to give it an 8.5. And I honestly feel that there is room to grow.
Okay.
I may end up in the 9s.
So
with you
within
there.
that, I'm reading Brad is telling me to buy a Talisker 30. I guess I will.
That's fine. You can do that. And then I'll get Oban 21 and then we'll call it even.
Yep.
And I mean, I know the Talisker 15 was a surprise bang addition to the episode here right on the tail end of the episode. But does your rating of 9.5 change?
It's hard to say. If anything, my only issue with our ratings based off Talisker 15 and Lagavulin 12 is that I didn't put them closer together because I think the Lagavulin 12, I think it's closer to the Talisker 15 than 0.5 of a mark since we're going very granular with our pointings, with our points, and we're giving them 0.4s, 0.7s, 0.8s. I might not move Talisker 15 down, but I probably move Lagavulin 12 up to a 9.4.
Okay, that's pretty interesting. I mean, for me, definitely I think the Talisker 15 still sits at the 9.5.
Yeah.
Definitely holds its place as the highest rated Scotch we have here. Very deserving of it as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like, they've done a really good job with these cask strength special releases. They're just great.
Yeah, and I mean, look, I probably don't necessarily agree with Daniel when it comes to bumping up the Lagavulin 12 to 9.4, even though the Lagavulin 12 is an exceptional dram. It's beyond that. It's incredible. It's an all-time favorite. But look, if you got a chance to get not Lagavulin, Talisker 15 cask strength 2019 Rare by Nature, if you got a chance to get that, I will always wholeheartedly recommend it.
Yeah, and I think that like ultimately does come down to your preferences as well. Like, just to put it in context, my decision to move Lagavulin 12 up was the fact that I gave Lagavulin 16 a 9. So I gave it the same rating as the Lagavulin 12. That's not really representative of their quality because Lagavulin 12 is actually a lot better than the 16. And so if you're a fan of like that really strong peat and you're like really enjoy good solid expressions of peat, you're leaning more towards Lagavulin. If you love the island maritime drams, go the Talisker 15. Like, you cannot go wrong with either of these. However, just bear in mind that we're reaching the end of 2020, so the 2019 special releases are becoming very scarce.
Yeah, and I think this Talisker 15 just reminds me that when this Talisker, it's going to be 8-year-olds, right? The rum cask.
Yeah, rum cask.
I am on board. I'm on deck.
Oh,
I'm just full mast for that one.
gonna secure one of those, like no doubt about it.
But look, if we're looking back at the two scotches we have here that are the actual focus of this episode, right? Let's just
Yep.
put the Talisker 15 back in the bag, get it off the table. Just all right, that was a surprise. That was, I guess, Daniel's little treat there. I don't know how much you wanted to get back to that one. Let's just put it to the side. Talisker Storm, Talisker 18. Look, Talisker Storm, a lot more affordable than the 18.
Yep.
But what I'm going to say is that the Talisker Storm still presents everything that you'd typically put in your mind when you're thinking about Talisker. So definitely something that I would say is an entry-level Talisker.
Yep. Yeah, I'd agree. It's just like quintessential Talisker. And I think like the way I'd associate it with what we've talked about previously is we're peat heads. We're constantly trying to pursue that same kind of peaty hit we got when we first tried a peated whiskey. When you first try Talisker, that peppery bite that you get, I've revisited Talisker 10 recently. Didn't carry that same impact, but the Talisker Storm did. So I was like, it's like rediscovering peat all over again. So for me, that's what Talisker Storm did. And I'm like, yes, this is why I fell in love with Talisker. And the Talisker 18 represented that in a much more developed and refined fashion and combined it with a range of other flavors. So it showed you we're not just this one kind of experience on different levels. We can actually introduce other flavors and create a complex experience that is thoroughly enjoyable.
Yeah, so look, if I'm looking at them both, hey, look, if money isn't a problem, the Talisker 18 is, I'd almost say it's an excellent to incredible starting point into Talisker.
Yeah, it's going to tick a lot of boxes.
Yeah, because you're still going to get those strong Talisker notes, but they are, well, they've been so well blended and married with other familiar notes that you've probably become accustomed to in other scotches that you're not going to be put off at all.
Yeah, and especially if you're a fan of Scotch, like just in general. So you're trying Islay, you're trying the Maritime Island Drams, and you're trying Speyside and Highlands, you're going to be able to pick up a lot of diverse flavors in the 18, which I think is its main strongest point, is like kind of like drawing together a range of different experiences and flavors that you can pick up if you're already experienced.
And I guess just leading off Daniel's last point there, where it's like, if you're open to experiencing that, I'd say, look, and this is coming from someone that hasn't experienced the Talisker 10, which is like a quintessential Scotch that someone should experience as they journey into the water whiskey.
Yep.
Look, I mean, sacrilege, whatever you want to say, right? Like, but man, I'm going off just Talisker Storm, Talisker 15, Talisker 18. If you can't find the Talisker 15 and you're trying to find it, you've got the money to burn for that. Get the 18.
Yeah.
Right? Get the 18. Don't grab the Storm if you're looking for the 15.
Yeah, if that's where your mind is at, like you're kind of after one in that price range, you're after one in that quality, the 18 is going to suit you much better.
Yeah, and the fact is, 18 has the accolades to back it up. And the Storm, though, like if I'm looking at the Storm, it's still, oh man, it's such a great whiskey. And the fact that I've given it in that rating, it's great. It's definitely well above average. It's definitely got a lot more to it than what you'd find in a typical Scotch.
Yeah, like if the Talisker 18 and the Talisker 15 are sitting outside of your price range, I'd probably highly recommend the Storm because it does sit in a more affordable area, and I think it'll service you a lot better than a lot of the other ones you'd find around that price range would. But each to their own. Like, you enjoy whiskey the way you want to enjoy whiskey, but, you know, if you're open to trying new things, as we've mentioned, maybe don't go out and buy a bottle. Maybe just go out to your local bar or pub and try it.
What's really interesting for me, though, is I think if you like Speysides, you're more inclined to the Speyside Highland kind of dram. the 18 might be up your wheelhouse.
Oh, that's very true. Yeah.
So
The
look,
18 would be your entry point into Talisker.
I mean, as hard as that is to say, I mean, like, hey, your entry point into Talisker is a $190 bottle. That's your entry point. But look, I mean, to each their own. If you're willing to be adventurous and want to delve into Talisker, get into the Storm, get into the 10,
Yep.
right? But if you want to maybe get in at a point that you're more accustomed to, if you're someone that's familiar with Space Island Highlands, get into the 18, get into the 15.
Yeah.
And with that, I think that's probably all we have time for today, unfortunately. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to leave you, and Daniel and I are going to go pour another dram and enjoy the rest of the night, right?
Yes.
So,
thank you for listening. As always, if you've got any thoughts or suggestions or opinions, or you just want to check out some of our photos of the bottles we've been reviewing, visit our Instagram at Dram Talk Podcast. You can contact us on dramtalk.au@gmail.com. Thank you for tuning in. Have a great night. And as always,
pour another dram!